At Meta Connect 2025, Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg announced a new generation of smart glasses in collaboration with Ray-Ban and Oakley, visually almost indistinguishable from traditional eyewear. While smart technology like this entering everyday life is celebrated as a brave new world by some, it's a nightmare come true for others. Civil rights organizations are sounding the alarm over the technology's abusive potential. So, do we need to act fast to keep our privacy rights in place?
There is a battle right now, but there is a battle in many fronts.
This is Cleanthe Sardelli. Cleanthe is a data protection lawyer with NOIB, an NGO that tries to enforce data protection laws and the right to privacy.
One thing that many people might not have in mind is that smart glasses have this feature many times that the footage is being transferred and reviewed by humans. This means that there are companies and actual humans reviewing your daily recordings and your daily movements in that case, and maybe even intimate situations that you wouldn't want to be filmed in the first place. This is a very dangerous scenario, and this compromises user privacy to a very, very large extent. This is a hidden danger that comes with these smart glasses and these devices that users should be aware of and should be thinking about before buying.
This is pretty alarming, but before we get into the details, let me just give you a quick overview of the so-called smart glasses that we're talking about here. These look exactly just like classic Ray-Bans, but there's a camera in the corner that can be activated by just a single tap of the glasses. Now, when the camera is filming, there's a white light that flashes, but this can be easily covered by a sticker. There are even stickers on the market specifically for this reason. And these aren't niche products anymore. Meta says it sold over 7 million pairs globally. Metas are the most popular right now, with a market share of roughly 80%, but competitors are trying to catch up. Apple is reportedly developing its own pairs, as is Google. It seems to me that there are two major potential threats here when it comes to privacy. The threat from a wearer of these glasses who could film me without my knowledge or my consent, and the threat that big tech companies pose to the user of these wearables. AKA, by wearing these glasses, you're handing over a huge amount of personal data. But what I want to know, first and foremost, is what are my rights if I'm being filmed in public? Especially if it's without my knowledge or my consent.
Let's say that the world is separated from Europe and the rest of the world, so where the GDPR is a reality and when the GDPR is where the GDPR is not. When someone is being filmed in public, the GDPR gives you a certain set of rights. These rights can be to access the recording itself. It can be to, if the recording is being done with your consent, to withdraw your consent, to actually say, please stop this right now. So this would be actually the biggest tool that we have right now. However, of course, in the cases where people are being filmed without their knowledge or even their consent, their rights are becoming essentially diminished. And that is because they have no knowledge of the processing operation, of the filming that is being done at this point in time. So within Europe and in Germany, we have the GDPR, and in the rest of the world, we can see that the landscape is quite fragmented. For example, in the US, we can see that we have different states with different data privacy laws, which require either consent from both parties, who are the filmer and the filmee, and we have other states where the consent is required by only one of the parties. So we see that there is no actually not a perfect picture worldwide and not an equal set of rights everywhere.
As a woman, I find it particularly concerning that there could be footage being posted online without my knowledge or my consent. Even before these glasses existed, there were plenty of people out there, predators, criminals, who would try to secretly film women. So how serious is the development of these glasses in terms of the risk of women's safety here?
The risk is quite serious, actually. We see that women are being recorded from either influencers or other actors without their knowledge or consent, and most of the cases it comes down to being approached in public and being filmed with some sort of intention to bring them to a compromised position, a vulnerable position. We see that these actions are just an extension of the reality that women face in other areas of their lives as well. But when it comes to data protection, women are not aware a lot of the times of their rights in these situations. And the GDPR is there to protect users and, bottom line, women as well, with the complaint mechanism before the data protection authorities in Germany and beyond. And this will allow both the investigation of this incident as well as the enforcement and potential fine to the perpetrator of this unlawful behavior.
Okay, so in Europe we are somewhat protected. But what about the rest of the world? In the US, for example, filming people in public spaces is often legal because there is no reasonable expectation of privacy. So if someone approached you on the street wearing these glasses and then posted that interaction online, the legal framework in Europe that gives you the right to demand it be taken down doesn't exist. Another major issue is the topic of child safety. Minors are treated with extra protection in Europe. For example, it's illegal to film children without parental consent, even in public. Countries like Brazil, South Africa, and parts of Asia are headed in a similar direction. But in the US and many other parts of the world, minors are less protected in the eyes of the law. But Cleanthe says that merely the existence of these laws is still nowhere near enough.
Enforcement is really tough. How can some supervisory authority really detect and find people who film small childs without the consent of the parents in the wild?
In fact, Cleanthe was pretty clear that, at least in Europe, the necessary regulations are already in place, but that her main concern is enforcement.
I think that we really have the regulation and the laws in place right now. The only problem is that we don't enforce them. I think that I would simply just try to enforce the law instead of just having another piece of legislation that stays just something to be on paper. And I would prefer to go in the way of enforcement and applying the law that we already have, because this is worldwide, the GDPR, a very strong data protection tool. It's such a strong tool that so many companies actually are trying and lobbying to change it and to diminish fundamental rights to profit essentially from people's data.
Hold up. Companies are trying to change the data protections that we already have in place to protect us?
We have these big tech companies, whether their name is Google, whether it is Meta, and so on, that use user data in many different ways through these smart glasses. We have the iris data protection, which is responsible for all the big tech companies. This becomes even more complicated when we see that national supervisory authorities, such as the DPC, have very limited resources, or they have appointment of their members with political influence. Sometimes we even have meta lobbyists joining as members in this Irish Data Protection Commission. This is an actual event, and this is very important to point out because this really undermines the enforcement process. When there is a potential conflict of interest in the appointment of a member of a supervisory authority, this member should not be appointed in the first place, or they should not be working on cases or have a management role within the organization, because there might be issues that fall under their jurisdiction as well and their competence. These smart glasses are not built with data protection in mind from the get-go. And when a technological product is not being designed with privacy by design and by default, as the GDPR tells us, then we simply see that it is a product that is problematic and should not be out in the market in the first place. However, big tech companies have managed to do that and have managed to bypass the laws, and we see there the lack of enforcement and the lack of power on behalf of the European Union supervisory authorities. Bottom line is that within our daily life, we would be faced with surveillance all over the place without even having control of our data anymore.
Cleanthes NGO Noib has tried to take on big tech for privacy violations, but we're faced with several big hurdles.
There is a battle right now, but there is a battle in many fronts. We have the front of the big tech, which have immense resources and continue to essentially avoid the laws or ignore them altogether and go forward with devices with processing of personal data that is completely unlawful. And at the same time, we have a European Commission which is trying to reform the GDPR and bring it to a lower standard than it was before. So we are right now trying, both with our litigation and with pressure to the institutions, to actually have enforcement happen.
It's worth noting that when Google came out with their OG smart glasses a decade ago, they were a total flop. People found them really creepy and they barely lasted 2 years on the market. However, they looked a lot more techy, whereas Meta's glasses look just like normal glasses. So we asked Cleanthe whether she thinks they will become as normal as, say, having a smartphone.
I think that in the European Union, this technology is not as successful. And the reason is, in the European Union, we are really mindful of privacy and data protection. So I think that even though smart glasses are continuously being sold and available to citizens within the European Union and residents alike, they will not be mainstream anytime soon. We will not see our friends and family using them all the time, simply because this is such an intrusive technology. And I think that by now, many people have realized that. I see the potential technological advancement being very dangerous for privacy, because we have already seen that with these smart glasses, Harvard students were able to deploy software that was recognizing people on the street. And this is an actual case from Harvard, from people that are just researching the potential of this technology. So the fear and the thought is that maybe there is so much potential that we don't know of yet. And this is why the enforcement of the GDPR is so important at this time and age.
The smart glasses market has grown rapidly in recent years. According to US-based market research company Grand View Research, the market was worth just under $2.5 billion in 2025 and is forecast to increase sixfold by 2033. It seems to me now like yet another example of technology advancing at a rate so fast that regulators are struggling to keep up. While at the same time, major technology companies are increasingly investing in lobbying efforts to weaken or roll back existing privacy protections, such as Europe's GDPR. Living in Europe, and especially Germany, perhaps makes me more wary about my right to privacy. So I am curious to know, what are your thoughts? Are Meta's smart glasses an invasion of privacy? Or are they just a natural step in technology that will make our lives more convenient? Let us know your take in the comments below. I'm Hannah Hummel in Berlin. Thank you so much to Cleanthe Sardelli and to my producers, Till Boller, Frank Suyak, Melissa Chan, Stephen Gislam, Matthias Wolf, and Valentin Horvath.